Yesterday, due to me being lazy and also wanting to complete my part in this randomizer, I ended up playing Pokemon instead of Link to the Past. But the tech behind the whole thing is kind of really cool to me because you take a standard randomizer and you basically network it together and you go from there. So Archipelago is, well, so first of all, for those that haven't been exposed to randomizers, which if you haven't, then you're pretty well living under a rock at this point, I think. So randomizers basically take different elements of games and mix different item checks or even encounters around so that they're different for that playthrough. And you can do this multiple times, like do different seeds to randomize it. And so, for example, in Pokemon, like with the Universal Pokemon Randomizer, you can randomize your Pokemon encounters you find in different areas, and you can also randomize the items that you find in the overworld, and even the items that you get from gym leaders. So you can randomize the gym leader encounters and so on in a Pokemon context. Another really popular one is the Link to the Past randomizer that randomizes different item checks and things like that. So when you get an item, you could possibly get a hook shot instead of a heart container. You could get a heart container instead of a green rupee. So the different chests and everything are all randomized depending on the settings that you want to set. So if I were to go into generate randomized game, I have all these different options here in the Link to the Past randomizer. So I could enable certain glitches and what all, and it would take that into account. So there is logic behind a lot of the settings, unless you do no logic, in which case it just randomizes it full hat. But the logic basically makes it so that you can beat the game, and so it's going to place different things in what are called different spheres. So as you go through and progress and get different items, you can progress and get more of the items that you need to beat the game. So obviously you've got your goals, you've got your gameplay stuff and your difficulty. There are some more in-depth settings, like changing what stuff can be randomized and what all in the pool. Oh, then there is, like, even the Minish Cap has a randomizer, same deal. And if you've played Ocarina of Time or the Majora's Mask randomizers, the OOTMMO combo randomizer, you can even randomize the grass to the point that they're their own individual check. So we could go to generate a seed, and we can go into our settings, and we can go, where is it? Plentiful, beatable. So where is it? You've got different settings like token sanity. Here we are. So we could go in, so shop, shuffle. You can randomize what's in the shops. You can randomize a whole ton of things. You can put silver rupees into the pool of stuff to be randomized. You can make key rings, which basically provide all the keys for each individual dungeon available. And if you've seen any of my streams in the past, I've done that with Ship of Harkinian, where I've done randomizers for Ocarina, but not Majora. So those are different ones. Now Archipelago comes in that you can basically do a multi-world one where you have different games that connect together as a randomizer. And so you can find those same items for other games inside of your game. What's really cool about Archipelago is the fact that with this, you end up collaborating with games that you know well and finding other items in your game for other people that they need in their game. So like I've found heart containers for people in Pokemon in the overworld when I was doing it, and things like that. So if we go into the supported games list, you can see that there's a fair number of games like Doom, Ocarina, Pokemon. But then there are others that do have randomizers that are not supported for some reason. So you do kind of miss out on that. There's Link to the Past. So in this particular randomizer, someone was doing Link to the Past. So I was playing Link to the Past by proxy in this case, but I will get back to it on tomorrow. But anyway, so if I go into, where is it? Pokemon Red and Blue, this is the one I was doing. And options page, you can see that you've got a whole ton of options that are related to this. So Archipelago keeps track of all that. What's really cool about the tech behind it is a lot of the emulators you're going to use, there's this capability. So if I go into the setup guide here, this is where everything comes together. And so you're networking everything together to a central server, whether you self-host it, which is available as an option. If I go into here, I can go to my downloads again. I can go to Archipelago. And here is the whole launcher for everything. So I could connect a client to a central server, or I can also host a game here. So it'll pull up the server here. Boom, boom. It'll open up the file dialog, and then I can pull up my settings for that game. But I'm not quite going to go into it. It's more of kind of an overview. But it goes through connecting to it. So most of the games will use BizHawk, because BizHawk has a lot of task-specific tools, but it also has a Lua core in the back end that they end up using the Lua code in order to connect to the client that then connects to the server. So you're kind of doing like 2 or 3 different network sockets to get to the central server, where you can then have everything checked together. And I can actually pull up this one. And so what you end up with is this whole list of games. You can see when people are connected or not. You can see who's completed their goal. You can see what checks or hints have been found, and so on. So you've got different people that you can bring together to complete different games and have even multiple of the same game going at the same time. But in this case, when we put this together, we didn't quite do that. So you can configure one YAML. It tells you how to set things up for the YAML itself. And again, the YAML is pretty simple. If I go into, where is it? Players, Blue, Link. So I've got 2 that I set up here for Link to the Past and, Pokemon Red and Blue. So when I go through and mess with, where is it? Not the map tracker, but they do have like different stuff here, so you can track things with it other than using their web tracker. So if I go to the options page, once I've set everything up, I can export options here, and it'll have this YAML for me to put together that I can then put into a pool that whoever's hosting it, or if I'm running it, I can gather them all together, then create this overall YAML, and then it'll create the patches and so on, and do it all on its own, okay? Archipelago does a lot of stuff on the front end and makes it look easy to do. But then if I go to Link to the Past, I can go here, and this is slightly different because of the way that it has to work. You've got different emulator options to include BizHawk, and you've got to connect it in just the right way so that you can get it loaded. You will have to they will have their AP patches that Archipelago will take care of patching for you. It's really easy, and once you do one ROM the first time, you never have to find it again. So you have a lot of options going on, and so you can, for example, in the case of Link to the Past in Blue, I could find the hookshot for Link to the Past in like Silphco, But then I could also find, if I set badge sanity up, I could find a badge in Link to the Past over otherwise. The other cool thing is once you complete your goal, it releases all your items and takes all the items, your items from the other games, and gives them to you. So it makes it a lot easier for the other players if you can complete your game a lot quicker, because it'll give them everything that's in your game and then send it back to you. So if you were watching the stream, what ended up happening, if I go to the end here, I think. Wow. Scruffy. So we can see. Let me do this just for fun, since I final battle like I always do when I do. Gonna mute that. I believe in me, I think. Come on, buddy, load up. Did I get distracted here? But I did. Okay, I'm gonna pull it up here. Kick. Magnifying glass, a progressive glove, a big key. So you can see that right here in the side window, it basically released all the items that I had right after I won the battle. So having, yeah, made my goal, I released all the items. So like different progression items, like the progression glove here. If I go in, like big key, you've got swamp heart, bomb shoes, that's really cool. Like money in another game, piece of heart, like different things that way. And it's kind of cool to see it all come together. So you create this, something that's typically done alone, you can do something collaborative with it. And you can even have people doing multiple instances of the same game like this. So ZFG had done a multi-world randomizer, I believe with Archipelago as well, where both of them were, no, all three of them were playing Link to the Past. So they all were able to get items for each other in the game, and it'll show up differently depending on what the game is. But if you're playing the same game, you'll see the item sprite that corresponds with that item, but it may go to another game. That's all there is to it. But yeah, it was pretty fun to play through Pokemon that way, because once I got in, a lot of my key items that I needed were already found. And then mid-game is, if someone gets an item while you're playing at the same time, you'll hear the ding of you getting an item, the fanfare of it, while you're playing the game, and it'll just put it into your inventory straight away. Because of the networking and the code behind it, it's really cool. So if I go into the data, Lua, let's see, BizHawk generic is what a lot of them ran. LADX BizHawk is another. So you've got different sockets that you can run. Let's see, it's under what? That's interesting. Okay. It's not an open source license. Looks like. It's all copyrighted. Okay. So we can look at BizHawk version, Lua major patch, socket first, port size range, socket port last, plus first. Okay, so it'll go through and look for sockets that are available, it looks like, but it starts at 43,055 for the local client when you're connecting it. So you have to run client software and then you connect the emulator to the socket. So that's why it has to do this. So that's why it picks an arbitrary one and then looks for it. It's possible you may have another, if you're trying to run multiple at the same time, you could have something going on, but you probably have to make sure that you're connecting the game first and then go from there. So then we've got, let's see, locked, shift, new queue, message queue, request handlers. So you've got different cores. So I believe what it does is it looks at the memory in the game, and because each one is going to be a different flag or byte that you're going to look at, whether it's off or on, it makes it easier to decide, because a lot of these games have been, particularly the older ones, the memory has been looked over and over again, which is how they're able to make the randomizers work. But because those different checks are addressed, they can look at the memory, see, oh, this has been checked, so this one corresponds to this item in the pool, so I need to send this item to that person and tell them, hey, you can flick this up and put this in the inventory. So it, in essence, runs as like a cheat engine in the background, while at the same time not being a cheat engine per se. But it works. It works really well. So let's see. Waiting for clients to connect and so on. So it'll show that in the BizHawk menu. Let's look at LADX, because that was one that was being done. Local socket require. So LADX is interesting because some of the games will give you a message in game of, you found this item and you sent it to this person. So LADX is this way. Link to the Past is kind of that way. Pokemon is different in that it just says like player found AP item. And then you have to rely on the client window in order to tell you what that was. So, yeah. There's a lot less in here, but it is for one game. Let's see if we look at OOT. Legend of Zelda, the classic one. So you do have a lot of options going on, which is really cool. But yeah, Archipelago has a lot going on, and I would highly recommend it if you've got friends that you've ever wanted to do something like this that doesn't require you to be on all at the same time. Archipelago is a great way to play, in essence, a game together and work cooperatively while still being able to keep some flexibility in your schedule and not have to schedule everyone all at once for like a whole 5-hour thing. Even though that can be fun, there are times and places for it, but we can't always do it. If you liked the content, if you enjoyed it, if you think I deserve it, like, comment, subscribe, leave any criticisms you have or what have you. I appreciate it. Feed that algorithm, like I said, and I will see you guys in the next one.